Hey everyone, Eric Watson here, freelance writer, player of games, writer of words, recorder of videos, and tabletop role-playing aficionado. Welcome to another DriveThruRPG review, my written and video view series. Take a look at the adventures and supplemental material at DriveThruRPG.com. This video will be reviewing the mini-adventure Following the Tracks, designed by Maria Gatta for Pathfinder 1st Edition. If you enjoy my videos, consider using my affiliate links for your online shopping and supporting me via patreon.com/RogueWatson. So, quick intro, I have not played Pathfinder in something like 6 or 7 years. I do have some experience with Pathfinder 1st Edition specifically, and obviously because it's a, cousin of D&D, pretty much D&D 3.5. But once we started playing 5th Edition in 2015, we never really looked back. I have, however, since reviewed several Roll20 modules that were based in Pathfinder, and, in terms of adventure design, all of that is basically the same. It's just individual, basically balance things is probably the only thing I'm not going to be able to really comment on, so I just want to put that out there. But it's exciting to be able to review a Pathfinder adventure. This one is designed for level 5 and utilizes a really cool, underused setting for fantasy RPGs, which is basically like an African savanna, and this reminds me a lot of Quest for Glory 3, which, for those of you that watch the channel, you know that one of the campaigns I thought about running was a homebrew conversion of the Quest for Glory adventure game series. One of those modules would have been basically a fantasy version of the African savanna. So this is very exciting to see and read this and realize, oh yeah, this would be a nice adventure that could even supplement that adventure. It's well designed. It's not a dungeon crawl at all, which is refreshing, I think, in a lot of ways. Instead, it's kind of a just series of encounters as you are hired to retrieve these stolen animals. So these animals on the cover, which are the lilipotamuses, are these unique, actually fey creatures, which kind of comes into the story. They're smaller hippos that have these beautiful flowers and things growing on them, and basically they are highly sought after as, pets and decorative animals. It's not like it's a ivory trade or anything really like scummy like that, but still it's a little bit like, people are taking animals and giving them to other people. Like there's definitely some animal trading there. So the players, after a potentially optional introduction where they might end up fighting some hyenas, I think, with rabies, painted dogs, they meet up with these merchants who have elephants, catfolk, which seems very appropriate to the savannah. I don't know if this is a part of like Galarian and the Pathfinder world, or if this is just a homebrew setting. I'm not going to comment on any of that because I'm not familiar with it, but I just think it's a neat location for an adventure. And by the way, the artwork throughout this adventure uses basically pictures of African savanna. There's no fantasy, traditional RPG artwork or Pathfinder art, anything like that. It's all like, those big, what are they called? The baoboa trees or whatever they are, and like giraffes and just, pictures of nature, really. So very, very cool artwork. You meet up with the merchants. They've got elephants, they're catfolk, and they say, hey, we are lilipotamuses, had been stolen by bandits, please go rescue them. Pretty traditional opening hook for, adventuring. And then becomes essentially a series of encounters. There are no maps, unfortunately, but there is a nice variety of encounters. In fact, we even have alternate hooks where the players could end up chasing the bandits with the lilipotamus. If you want to be a little bit more action-oriented, for example. And there's a whole system here for using different chase sequences where the players could basically make a bunch of skill checks to avoid running into different things. So I thought that was a really cool mix. There's even options if the party comes and just wants to murder their quest givers for whatever reason. There are notes for that. So I do appreciate when designers put into place these kind of contingency plans, because obviously that is a big part of designing an adventure for a tabletop RPG. Is what do you do when the players do this? You can't. You can't ever anticipate everything, but at least give me some of those contingencies. And once we go to start tracking the actual bandits, there is an encounter with some lions. We can choose to stealth past them. The bandits have a poisoned trap we need to avoid or disarm. And then there's a really interesting encounter with a bunch of monkeys that can scream, and the players have different options to try to silence them. Otherwise, they will alert the bandit camp. So that was just a really nice way of putting a variety of things that isn't just, hey, roll, this combat encounter, this combat encounter. Instead, there's a nice variety of things. Here's where it gets really interesting, though. So far, it's been kind of traditional with a cool setting. Like a lot of, all the animals and the traps and things all feel very appropriate to that, that African savanna setting. And then once we get to the bandits, they're not actually bandits. Instead, they're not like eco-terrorists necessarily, but kind of nature freedom fighters, I guess, in a way. They're basically trying to liberate these lillipotamuses from this existence of being traded and sold to different, nobility or whatever, and returning them to the Feywild, because apparently they are Fey-based creatures, and there is a Fey portal in this place that the bandits are heading to. This is a really cool twist. But it's possible for the players to miss it, which is a bummer. So obviously the twist is you reach the bandits and you talk to them, you hear their side of the story, and then the players have to make a choice. Do we continue on our initial, quest path and defeat these bandits, take the lillipotamuses, return them and get a reward, and then boom, we're done? Or do we then pick up this new quest of, hey, help us get these lillipotamuses to the Fey realm where they belong, and thus essentially abandoning or ignoring our original quest givers? It's interesting. The only bummer here is that I like that twist a lot, but it needs to be made a little more obvious for the party, because if the party does everything right, if they silence the monkeys and they stealth their way in and they just start blasting, which some parties will do, because you said the word bandits, they're like, all right, they're bandits, they're just cattle rustlers, they're stealing the and that's kind of what it initially paints, and maybe they don't realize it's the twist about these are not actual bandits, but it just says the bandits will defend themselves. So you could just end up with a combat encounter, and then you presumably win, you take the lillipotamuses and you return back, and there is actually some encounters along the way as you return, but still that's not nearly as satisfying versus having that conversation and having the players make a choice. So what I think is missing here is, even if the players start combat and they surprise the bandits, have the bandits, have a dialogue, a scene where they immediately or maybe they'll try to surrender initially and, talk to the players down. Hopefully they get a chance to do that before, the party starts murdering people. Or if the players are really smart and they really want to sit there and spy on these bandits, then include some scenes where you can convey the fact that these are not, cattle rustling bandits. In fact, maybe they're treating the animals very kindly and talking to them and petting them, and they're being friendly with each other, and it's supposed to be kind of a twist there, and that would be a really fun way of conveying that. So I guess I was hoping there was a little more information there to play up the fact that this is a twist, rather than the one it's got is that if the monkeys sound the alarm and then the players walk into it, then obviously the bandits have been alerted, but they will start by talking to the players, and then that enters the fact that you can just have that conversation, they can tell them. So I'm more worried about the fact that if the players, do everything right in terms of the stealth aspect, and they want to sit there and either spy on the bandits or even attack them without asking any questions, because some parties will do that, or some party members will do that, then include some way of still having these bandits be able to tell their side of the story, because I think that's the more satisfying way of running this adventure. So once they make that choice, it's literally a choose your own adventure. If the PCs end up killing the Guardians and fulfilling essentially the job, then they go to page 20, I believe it is. Or if they decide to side with this new group, which they are called the Chattering Woodlands Guardians, so we'll no longer call them the bandits, then they then are tasked with helping them escort the lillipotamuses back to the Fey world. Either one is going to end up with another combat encounter and a few more scenes, but neither are there going to be any boss fights. This is not a traditional dungeon crawl where you're going through and there's a big villain and all that. This doesn't have any of that. And it keeps up the fact that you are journeying across, which, by the way, druids and rangers would have some extra benefits, and the designer acknowledges that. They're just like, hey, this would be a good adventure for, animal-focused or outdoor-focused player characters, because they would be better at certain checks and things. So instead of saying, watch out if you have this kind of character. It's like, no, if you have this kind of character, this would be a great opportunity to run this adventure for that exact reason. It would give them a chance to shine, which I definitely appreciate that. So if they go to the Fey world, there's an encounter with these Twigajacks. We do get some cool hyperlinks to all of these enemies, which opens up I assume, some kind of Pathfinder wiki website that has all the information there. But all of the information is also included. If it's a new creature, it's included in this appendix, which means all of the named NPCs, which we have like 3 or 4 of the original caravan quest givers, and then we also have like 4 of the Woodlands Guardians are given full stat blocks and full descriptions at the end, which you will see. I do kind of wish there was some information in the beginning, because it throws around the names like I'm supposed to know who they are in these initial situations. I wish there was just a sentence that said, here's this person, or here are the names, whatever. It wasn't until I finished reading the adventure, for example, and then got to the appendix where I said, oh, here's where it lists all the different people. So maybe just have some information earlier would have been helpful. So you fight the Twigajacks. You end up with this nice concert show with these half cricket, elven, fey creatures. You can eat some fruit and basically just have this kind of role-playing social scene that seems kind of cute and fun. Not a whole lot of good reward if you go in here. It's more about you did the right thing, but you may end up with a Lillipotamus animal companion, which the designer seems to kind of want to push upon the players, which is a fun thing too, because they're kind of unique little cute creatures. But even if you do the other path, you also could end up with a Lillipotamus as well. In this case, you end up going back to camp. You most likely have to actually herd the Lillipotamuses, because you just attacked where they were, and they're going to run off and trample. So there's different skill checks involved in that. And there's a good chance some of them might be injured. And then you have to fight this living topiary and some bleshies in order to make it back to the original quest givers, where, again, they say like, hey, this one got wounded and is scarred. If you want to take that one, we'll reduce your reward a little bit. So the designer's like, hey, do you want a Lillipotamus? They're kind of cute and fun. It's a nice adventure. It doesn't follow the usual, like I said, the usual adventure trajectory of here's your quest, go into this dungeon, defeat this thing, here's this long villain backstory that's underused, and then defeat the villain, and then get your quest done. Instead, it is very much like it's outdoors the entire time. Trackers and animal people would be very themed. Party player characters would be very much in the spotlight in this adventure, which is totally fine. And it offers just a lot of fun, contingency plans. I like the choice that you can make, the very big choice. And it really uses that savannah setting in a very, very nice way. There's a lot of neat creatures. Some of them are mundane, like lions and those painted dogs. And others are a little more interesting. There's like some kind of malevolent jungle cat at one point that's supposed to be this like spirit of nature. The living topiary obviously is kind of a unique monster, and then the Twigajacks from the Fey realm. So it's a nice little mix, and then there's also an entire random encounter table in case you want even more encounters to supplement this adventure. And then finally we get this giant appendix of very, very impressive, which I didn't realize, maybe it's a Pathfinder thing where it gets really crazy in terms of their unique stat blocks, but hats off to the designer for including stat blocks for even the quest givers, whom presumably we're not really going to fight or mess with. Even if you fail to turn the quest in, they're just like, oh, well, I guess that sucks. And instead, they'll just basically go to the next town and talk shit about the players. It's not like you have to fight them or anything. But the other ones you may very well have to fight, which is the Chattering Woodlands Guardians. And we're given full stat blocks, descriptions, emotional descriptions and physical descriptions, which is very helpful. So pretty nice little adventure. Unfortunately, as you can see, no maps, but it's not a dungeon either. It's just a bunch of series of encounters. Let's go over my pros and cons for following the tracks. Pro, African-inspired Savannah is a memorable setting and well utilized. I don't think I've ever reviewed an adventure that took place in a Savannah that felt like it was right out of Africa with some like fantasy elements, basically. It included a lot of beasts, but also magical beasts, and included a plot line that would make sense there, which is kind of animal trading and not quite poaching, but kind of, similar to that vein. Pro, meaningful player choices, alternative hooks, and optional encounters. I really like that big choice they have to make and the twist about the fact that these aren't really bandits. The alternative hook, if you want to skip that beginning intro and jump right into the action, if you want to do the chase sequence, and then there's all those random encounters you can include. All of that is a huge plus and gives more powers and tools to a DM. Pro, full page descriptions and stat blocks for each NPC. That was that big appendix that we saw at the end. I do wish we kind of got a little bit in the sections initially, like when they get the quest givers, give me just a list of their names and like a 1-sentence description, and then same thing with the Chattering Woodlands Guardians, just so I don't have to skip all the way to the end to actually read about a little bit more about these characters. And pro, smart use of non-fantasy artwork. I really like it because I see a lot of the same, stock art all the time about different fantasy art. I probably could have used a little bit more artwork, especially I would have liked to see maybe the creatures or maybe a portrait or two, just because this appendix gallery doesn't have any art whatsoever. But I do like that it does a pretty good job of using what I would consider like, scenes that I would see in an African savannah, which is makes it more memorable and unique. Cons, I think the bandit twist needs to be more obvious. I'm worried if the players play their cards right and be stealthy and ambush and just start wiping out these bandits. There was nothing in the text about the fact that the bandits should try to reason with the players or, put up those, surrender or do anything like that and try to explain their situation more. And I would have liked to see scenes that players could wait and see play out that maybe they can learn not through dialogue but through spying that these are not actual cattle rustling bandits. They are in fact very much trying to save these creatures and may have a story of their own. I think that just should have been conveyed a little better because I think that is the better way to run this adventure. And then con, no maps. I am going to include it as a con because I like maps. Somebody who's played on a virtual tabletop, it's very handy to have maps, even though this is not a dungeon crawl. But still, there are combat encounters, and having even just one scene of like, here's your African savannah scene, you could reuse that for several different encounters would have been helpful. Final verdict. Following the tracks expertly applies an underused savannah setting teeming with life, featuring a variety of encounters with an interesting twist. Thank you to everyone for watching this video review. You can see my written review at roguewatson.com. You can watch more reviews and follow our own D&D adventures here on my YouTube channel, and you can support my work at patreon.com/roguewatson. Shoutouts to Platinum patrons Joe, Will, Tiny Dancer, Manuel, Wizard, Princess, Christopher, Thomas, Captain Mike, Adam, Aiden, Instant Lose, Roger, Stan, Nathan, and Alex. And gold patrons RPG, Papercrafts, Charming Grenade, Pretty Boy, and Yuma, Marcos, David, Vicente, Gilberto, Dead Lizard, Lounge, Sam, Ross, Limpy Spuds, Jerome, Fatboy619, Scalene, Nick, Farty McButterpants, Blood, Angel, Veronis, Baboon, Nathan, and Fast Like a Tortoise. Thank you all very much for your support.